everybody in the world.
Welcome back into the GSMC Fantasy Sports Podcast, brought to you as always by the GSMC Sports Network. Before we get into our second segment of the day here on the show, I do want to remind you, like we did before, if you wish to interact with the show more directly through our live streams, consider yourself availing yourself to the Super Chat, Super Thanks, and Super Stickers features here on YouTube. Great way to contribute and interact with the show. You can get your opinions out there, like I said, the comments, questions, and concerns you leave throughout the show in my comments section. I love reading them on air. Or you can also click that $sign in the comments section and leave a tip or donation as well. Everything you do is greatly appreciated by the network, and it just makes our shows that much better hearing your guys' input. Without further ado, let us continue talking Thursday Night Football. We started off with our general betting preview, as we always do for our Wednesday shows. Now we get into our player props. And this one seems pretty straightforward. I kind of feel like the best players will shine. The secondary weapons, it will remain to be seen. Because I feel like, the Bengals, out of both of these teams, have the better secondary weapons. I like that T. Higgins has really kind of matured into that very nice wide receiver 2 that I know he can be. I love what Yoshavas is doing. Gesicki could be a big piece in this offense as well, as we have seen in the past couple of weeks. So there are a lot of secondary weapons, but I still feel like the focus will be on the stars of the night, because the Ravens have 2 big ones that we know they're going to be relying upon. So it kind of felt like I had to reduce the Bengals a little bit just to shed light on what the Ravens are doing with these 2 guys. So that's why I feel like this player prop bet is much more stark compared to other ones I've done, where you have teams that really needed their secondary weapons to show up, and that's why I wanted to focus on them. But today, I'm going to hyper-focus on these players because of their importance, not only to their teams, but to the division race as well, because this is a highly integral game in the AFC North that will tell us a lot. So without further ado, let's jump right into this player prop segment. Let's start off with the Ravens, because we kind of know the story here. Everything's going to fall on Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry to kind of carry the load here. And I know it kind of sounds cliche, because these are 2 players, no matter where they are, whether Lamar Jackson being with the Ravens for as long as he has been, or Derrick Henry just coming to the Baltimore Ravens from a Tennessee Titans team where he was the focal point of what they did. These are the 2 guys that kind of capture the headlines for the Baltimore Ravens this season, kind of take the blame if they lose, or applauded when they win. So I have to really respect that aspect of who these players are, especially from a betting perspective, because they hold a lot of weight when you look at secondary options as well. When 2 players dominate like this, you have to take into account how this diversifies the betting market too. So let's start off with Lamar, because it feels safe to say that he's going to hit his over here. 232, or I believe 82.5 passing yards. And he's hit his over 7 of 9 times this season. So, as you can see, he's been a very steady presence as someone you can rely upon in the betting market as a quarterback. He is a presumptive MVP candidate, and that is helping bolster his case week by week, rather than just as in summation of what he's done this season. So, I feel like this game might be a bit hard to kind of agree with the over on this one, but recent history shows that Lamar Jackson is as reliable as they come. So that is why I feel like this is perhaps the safest bet from a Ravens point of view in this game. And not for nothing, as much as the Bengals defense has improved, like I said, look at who they've played. And that's what really makes me feel like Lamar's going to continue steamrolling. And he did it against a very kind of contentious Broncos defense, one that has played well, but, can get exposed when they're up against far superior teams that they can't really challenge. And so that's the thing about the Ravens. They can find ways to beat you, and Lamar Jackson is one of them. So he's going to take a lot of command for tomorrow night's bets. In terms of Derrick Henry, however, this is a weird one because much like Lamar, he's been consistent, 7 of 9 games hitting the over as well. But I'm going to say, and this might raise a little bit of skepticism amongst my viewers here, he's going to hit the under 91.5 yards. And a lot of you might be thinking, how is this going to come about when, the Ravens' strategy is so dependent on what Derrick Henry can do in certain situations specifically? What he can do in the fourth quarter when your defense is worn out. What he can do in early downs and early quarters when, he can really set the tone for the game. I feel like his presence will be felt, but I feel like there are going to be moments where the Ravens are really going to try and stretch this Bengals defense out. Really going to test how long that secondary can hold up. They're also going to want to utilize the screen game a lot, kind of utilize the speed that we know they have. And so Derrick Henry's role then becomes more about him as a situational back and as a receiving back than I think people might have expected in this one. So while I still think he's going to have a couple runs to establish what the Baltimore Ravens want to do, to establish that there still can be a physical team, there's going to be a lot of moments where you see speed, aggressiveness, verticality kind of overtaking what the Baltimore Ravens do in this one, because they feel like this game could be a shootout. They're acknowledging, I feel like, that the Bengals have the weapons to hurt them. But my thing is that there are different ways that Derrick Henry can be utilized for this Baltimore Ravens offense, and I can't necessarily say the same if he had gone anywhere else. And they know that. So, in that way, different avenues for what the Baltimore Ravens offense will look like tomorrow will be opened. And it might frustrate some people, but it's mainly because this is a very important game for them. Because they're playing 2 divisional games back to back. And if they don't win them, they lose ground, and then questions are asked of what this team really is. So they're going to want to prove that, yes, Lamar and Derrick are important chess pieces in the puzzle that is the AFC North, but they're not going to officially decide it. So Derrick Henry, out of both of them, feels like a safer option to kind of take a step back and diminish his role a little bit. But still, in certain areas, I feel like he will affect this game. Now let's move on to the Bengals side of things, because this seems a little bit more, contentious, because there feels like a lot more weapons that you have to concern yourselves with on the betting market from a Bengals perspective. You have Joe Burrow, who you always know is going to be someone who is always going to put up big numbers, always going to get his weapons involved, always going to have the will to win, and you know that he's going to want to come out guns blazing in this one. But then you have to consider, is T. Higgins' rise something that can change a bettor's perspective? Is Yoshivas a factor? Is Gesicki's game from last week going to play in the minds of people betting on the Bengals? So that's why I feel like I had to pick both Burrow and Chase to talk about. And it's the same situation. I have Burrow hitting the over here, 263.5. And the funny thing is, unlike Lamar, he hasn't really been that consistent in hitting the over. Only 3 of 9 games this season as he hit the over. So this one feels like a little bit more of a flyer than Lamar hitting his. But it's mainly because it's going to have to happen for the Bengals to have a chance in this game. And you know the Bengals don't want to give up any more ground. So look for Joe Burrow to come out aggressive, attack the field downfield or vertically, and for him to, most importantly, try and make this the Bengals game. Have the Bengals take advantage of the situation. And so that's why I feel like Joe Burrow is going to rise to the occasion in this one. Ja'Marr Chase, on the other hand, was a little bit tougher to kind of decipher how he would play out in this game. But he is someone who I kind of feel like is hiding behind the mirage of this offense a little bit. I feel like, he's had a decent season. He's had many an explosive play. But at times I feel like this offense is becoming more predicated on finding secondary weapons to help Joe Burrow, help establish a different sort of tone, that people now have to account for more players in that skill position core to defend, that Ja'Marr Chase could end up becoming a non-factor. And so that's why I'm saying he as well hits the under as perhaps the second biggest star in the Bengals. Because I look at this game plan and think for the Bengals, there's no way that Ja'Marr Chase isn't the prime objective in the Ravens' defensive game plan. There's no way that the Ravens aren't accounting for him somehow. And so Joe Burrow is going to use that to his advantage and say, well, if you take away my best weapon, I have guys like Yoshivas, Gesicki, and Higgins who I believe will step up for me. So that's why I kind of feel like Ja'Marr Chase is losing a little bit of his luster in these divisional games, because this is when you get into crunch time. This is when you have to start considering how secondary weapons come into play. This division isn't going to be decided wholly on the stars here. It's going to be decided on how people adapt to their stars being taken away and their stars not being the centerpiece of their game plan. That's why this felt so stark to me when comparing these two teams and their superstars, because of the fact that this game in the AFC North is highly contingent, not on who's superior and who plays like they're a star, but who can find other stars to help them in their mission. And so that's why I feel like I had to address the four big players in this one. But coming up after the break, we continue with our positional rankings, getting to an end here, but starting off with our tight ends today before concluding with our defense and special teams units to look out for this week. So we'll be right back after this short break. Do not go anywhere.
Looking for your daily fix of sports